Good evening, my dear, dear friends. Thank you so much for joining me. I can't tell you how much I love doing this, coming to you, having some wonderful messages of the Lord, and sharing our time and thoughts. I really appreciate it if you leave comments and like and subscribe. I really appreciate it when you send it out. Like to have more people on the channel. Right now, it's close friends and family, and I love you all so very much. If I was talking to one person, I would appreciate it very, very much. But having all of you is my great joy and my honor. In case you haven't been to this channel, I'm Pawnee, and I'm bringing you Mama's Fireside Chronicles. I have a book that helps me support the channel and the network here. So I really appreciate it. If you look online, you can go to Amazon or you can go to Barnes and Noble. It's at any great bookstore. It's called Mama's Fireside Chronicles. It's a lovely book of poems and parables. Thank you so much. Okay. So let's get into this. So today, our episode is called Understanding the Pressure. We've all had a little pressure. I think I have less now. Not that the pressure's not there, but I'm handling it differently. I had someone tell me the other day, Pon, you just seem to be so much more quiet in your spirit and calm. And I thought, Amen. I received that, and I think she's right. Well, I wanted to discuss with you about pressure. I have some family and friends right now that are really under this tremendous pressure, whether it's health or whether it's emotional. And I want to give you some tools here, okay? This is just food for thought. We're going to be using my board today. It's easy for me to put it up there and then read it. I've always had it in my mind if I can read something and hear it at the same time, I get it better. I hang on to it. I remember it better, and it means more. It makes more sense to me sometimes. So that's why I'm doing this. Leave it in the comment if you don't want these, but if you like them, give me a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, let's get started here, okay? So the key here is understanding the pressure. Now, of course, beloved, we all have pressure. I want you to just think for a minute, and I want you to say to yourself, Self, what are my pressures right now? Now, maybe you're really fortunate and you don't have any problems or any uh, burdens to speak of. Maybe you're just kind of going along kind of like I am. I have burdens, but okay. So let's just think for a minute. I want you to get it in your mind. What are your burdens? Beloved, what is your yoke? What's your yoke? What's your yoke today? Sometimes we have trouble with our spouses or our children. Those are burdens. Burdens on what? Our heart. Our heart gets burdened. Sometimes we have a job issue. Sometimes we got a pain in our shoulder or our back. Could be physical. So, whatever your burden is, I want you to think on that today, okay? So, now you're thinking on your burden, beloved. As I said, it could be physical or emotional. And I want you to set out in front of you what that pressure is that's on you today. Okay. We all feel pressure from one source or another. As I said, it could be the job, it could be the kids, it could be your dog ran into a skunk, whatever it is. Okay. We all have pressure. Pressure is part of this life, isn't it? So let me ask you this. Have you ever, beloved, have you ever asked the Lord to take your worldly pressures away? Have you asked Him? Have you talked to the Lord and said, Lord, I don't want this anymore. This has got too heavy for me. It's too much. I don't want it anymore. I know I have. Okay. And what I'm talking about here today is saying good riddance. That means good riddance to all your burdens, good riddance to all of your yokes. That doesn't mean my husband has been a pain in my butt today. I want to get rid of him. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, gosh, maybe I have a personal problem, and it could be something about my husband. Take his burden like that. Like, just get it out of here. I'm tired of burdens, Jesus. I don't want any more burdens. Help me with my burdens. Well, sorry about that. So in Matthew 11:29, it says, what Christ is talking to them, and he says, take my yoke. So take my burden, beloved. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me. For I am meek and lowly in heart. Ye shall find rest unto your souls. So first of all, he says, take my yoke. So we're well founded to ask the Lord to take these pressures, these burdens, these yokes, aren't we? But then he says, learn of me. Well, what does that mean? Well, he says, learn of me because he's meek and he's lowly in heart. Our beloved Lord is meek and lowly in heart. He doesn't say there's no more burden. What he says is, beloved, he says, take my burden, take my yoke. Okay? So there is a yoke, there is a burden, but it's not this heavy weight we have. And we feel good about it because he says we'll find rest in our souls if we'll just take his. So it's kind of an exchange, huh? Well, beloved, I want you to understand one who is lowly, which Christ said that he was, one who's lowly in heart is kind, tender, they're compassionate, and beloved, they are humble. So they're kind, they're tender, they're compassionate, and humble. So that's what the Lord is saying he is. Kind, tender, compassionate, and humble. We love those things, but we know that he's those things, don't we? We know that. So what is it that we need to learn here? Now, I've asked you to use this technique for research and learning before, but I want you to look at it again. So if the beloved is kind and tender and compassionate and humble, we want to take those. Those are all similar. Those would be considered synonyms. But what's the opposite? So if he's all those things, what is he not? What is he not, beloved? He wants us to learn. I'm these things. So how do we learn? Well, we learn because we learn that he is not rebellious. What he is not rebellious. Beloved, he wants us to understand he's a lot of things. He is not rebellious. So when we take his yoke on, is there a yoke? Is there a burden? Yes. Yes, beloved. He has a burden. There's a burden. He's not saying there'll be no more burdens if you just come on over here. No. He said, take my burden. There is a burden. But I am lowly. What is he not? Beloved, he is not rebellious toward the burden. Okay? He's not rebellious toward the burden. Now watch. In Jude 1:10, and it's just 10 because there's only one. In Jude, what Jude is saying here, he said, these speak of evil things which they know not, but what they know naturally. In other words, human nature, what we know naturally, not spiritually, not in God, not about Christ, but what we know as a natural man or woman is brute beast. We're as a brute beast. When we think about coming to Jesus and saying, Jesus, here, I need you, I want you to take my stuff. That's the natural man thinking. That's not what Christ said there, was it? He said, take my yoke, so we know there's a yoke. When we think otherwise, we're thinking, beloved, as a brute beast. We're thinking like somebody that can't think, an animal. A dumb animal is what he's saying here. Don't be a dumb animal. What does being a dumb animal do for a human being? It corrupts them. Being dumb about things, can you be dumb? Yeah. You can think in the natural. That makes us as a brute beast, which is a dumb animal. And it corrupts us. It corrupts us, beloved. So we need to understand the pressure. We've just taken on his yoke. It is pressure. So now we need to understand the pressure. What is this? What do I mean, his pressure? He's like God. He's got great pressure. Well, let's look at this a minute. Let's look closely. Understand the pressure, beloved. First of all, should we give it to Jesus? Yes, beloved. Give it to Jesus. If you have a burden, if you have a yoke, give it to him. He's going to transform it and teach you. But we have to learn of what? Him. And what? He is kind, he is tender, he's compassionate, and he is humble. And beloved, he is not rebellious toward the pressure. He's not rebellious toward the yoke. He says, I'll help you with the yoke. Don't be rebellious. So our key here is learn. He wants us to learn. What does he want us to learn? Well, I'm going to show you something here. Watch this. When I was a little girl, beloved, when I was a little girl, my beautiful, wonderful, brilliant mother, and she truly was, my friend, what she would do, she taught me to write when I was about 4 years old. My mother had the most beautiful penmanship I ever saw. Absolutely fabulous. Shawnee writes in the same manner. Beautiful, beautiful penmanship. My mother would take my hand, just like you're seeing here. She would take my hand and wrap her hand around it and put the pencil in it, and then would write the word or the letter or the thing, like my name. She started with my name. And this is what she'd do. Now watch this, beloved. She would put my hand in the middle, but she put pressure on my hand. In fact, because I was fighting her, she would put more and more pressure. The more I would fight her, the more pressure she put on my hand to teach me how to write. Okay? My beloved, once you conquer beloved, watch this. Once you conquer the desire to rebel against the hand of the Lord, conquer your rebellion against the hand of the Lord, beloved, you shall fly as effortlessly as the eagle soars. Beloved, when I stopped fighting my sweet mother and let her take my hand with pressure, when I stopped fighting her, I began to learn. I began to learn to write. But I had to learn to stop rebelling against her hand. Well, the Lord is exactly the same. The Lord, Jesus, the Lord has his hand on yours. He's putting a little pressure because it's required to teach you. So there's always going to be some pressure. But what makes it easier? Beloved, what is going to make our soul rest? Where was it? There it is. Remember this? Ye shall find rest unto your souls. My friends, we're going to find rest when we stop the brute beast natural thinking and stop resisting and rebelling toward the Lord. His hand is on us. Is there pressure? Yes, beloved. There's always going to be pressure. Understand the pressure. If you give it to the Lord, you've got troubles. It's not a magic show. It's the Lord. It's the Lord. Okay? There's always going to be pressure, my dear friends. There's always going to be some source of upheaval, of trauma, of yoke, of burden. There's always going to be a little trouble there. If you give it to the Lord, he's going to place his hand over your hand as you requested. And he's going to help you with the yoke, with the burden, with that thing. And you're going to learn to soar effortlessly. And beloved, you are now unconquerable, and no weapon formed against you shall prosper. Now you cannot be conquered. Why? The Son of God has his hand upon yours. Who could resist? No. Beloved, I want you to understand, if you have prayed, ask God to take this thing away, take this burden away, just remember it's an exchange. Does that mean there's no pressure? No. It means the pressure you feel is your beloved Lord. Is there less? Hopefully. Do not be rebellious against the hand of the Lord. He's teaching you. He loves you, and he wants to do well, and he wants to help you. Dear friend, I hope you got this message. I thought it was quite lovely. I do hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful evening. I thank you. And by the way, just to remind you, I'm Mama, and these, beloved, these are my Chronicles. Good night.